Okay. I am going to wait another minute to see if anybody else trying to get online manage to get online. So we'll see.
Sure. Huh. No. Nope. So, Aaliyah, do you want to do FaceTime maybe sometime tomorrow to go over another lesson or?
Sure. That sounds good.
Okay, so we'll try to do that.
So we will be looking at Romans 12:1 tonight, the first verse of chapter 12.
Okay.
So I'm gonna just a minute while I ask somebody to read that.
So is the idea with this class to go through the whole chapter verse by verse?
Yes.
Pretty much.
Mm-hmm. We should end up covering all of Romans 12, yes.
So it might take 21 weeks, 21 meetings.
It might, yes. A few meetings will cover more than one verse at a time, but
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Did anybody else RSVP that they would be coming to the class, Aaliyah?
Alice and Nadine both said they would be coming. I'm not sure how
Okay.
easy it will be for them to actually get in, because sometimes Zoom is hard to get into.
Oh,
I mean, I've had things where I
was
intended
easy.
to go to it, but it turned out just be hard to log into the Zoom. So
I thought it was easy with a link. I didn't have any trouble.
Sometimes it is, but sometimes, depending on your ISP, sometimes it becomes difficult.
Okay.
So I know Alice has tried to join and she's having trouble, so
Okay.
it is difficult. I don't know.
Might be her device. Who knows?
Mhm.
Her device or her connection.
Yeah, sometimes when I get on a new computer or something, I have trouble at first convincing it to get me on Zoom calls.
So I see the New American Standard Bible has changed brethren from the King James into brothers and
Technically, in the
sisters.
Greek, it does say brethren because Greek does not have a word that means both brothers and sisters. It just has the default word that technically means brothers for that concept. And it
Mhm.
gets used
Well,
as
brethren to me sounds very, biracial, but brothers sounds very male. But somehow brethren sounds
I
okay.
mean,
Maybe just
technically, yes,
Yeah,
the
language.
me
Greek
too.
term does include all people you would consider siblings, but if you look at the Greek closely, you technically it is a male word, and you would translate it as brothers.
No.
So somebody being very strict on translation would often come up with brothers, even though you can say the spirit of the word is more brothers and sisters
Hmm.
than being.
Just for males, yeah.
Mhm.
So how are you going to start, Aaliyah? We might as well.
Just ask somebody if they can look up Romans 12:1 and read it to us. See if somebody has a
I'll read it.
Bible.
Are we
Okay.
starting? I'll read it.
Yeah, go ahead and read it, Mary Beth.
Okay, mine is from the um, RSV, which is an old translation, but
Mhm.
I appeal to you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship.
Mhm.
Hmm. Your service of worship, which is what you have quoted there, Aaliyah.
Mhm.
Your service, whereas the King James talks about reasonable service rather than
Mhm.
service of worship.
Yeah, so we'll get to that part, but first of all, what is your picture of a living sacrifice? Of a living sacrifice, what does that seem to mean to you?
Oh, Nadine's here.
Right.
Hi, Nadine. We don't see your picture yet.
Nadine. Well, as a Christian, I think it's you're sacrificing the values of the world. You're giving up some things in the world in order to dedicate your life to God
Mm-hmm.
as much as you can,
Mm-hmm.
as much as possible. Like your example was Hannah giving Samuel to the temple to serve there.
Uh-huh.
Mhm. Yeah, I think to me, it means giving up the ego or the attachments to the material world, which was
Mm-hmm,
essentially, Mary Beth says, kind of a similar thing.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then following who you know God created you to be. If you can find that. Yeah. So, what do you think it means, Aaliyah?
I do mean it makes every part of your life is you take into account what God would want from it. So, as you make money to take care of yourself with God is part of God's plan. So you take care of yourself, but you also think, okay, and your family and that, but you also take into account how God wants that you to use your whole life, so maybe does he want you to take in other people to be part of your family to take care of, or does he want you to use any excess to maybe give to a charity or something? And you think about all those things.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Nadine. Do you have any thoughts about what it means to be a living sacrifice?
Uh, no, not really. I don't feel like, at least from my point of view, there's been much sacrifice. There's nothing that I've given up that uh, has really, that has bothered me at all. And
Mm-hmm.
in fact, he has answered all the desires of my heart. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any problem with that.
Mm-hmm. And let's also look at how so initially Samuel was given up to the temple by his mother. His mother's, because he was an answered prayer, and she promised that he would be given to the temple, so she did. But let's look at also about how Samuel responds when he is actually called. So let's look at 1 Samuel 3, verses 3 to 11, if somebody can look that up.
Okay. 1 Samuel
Chapter
3,
3.
3 to 11.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Where
I've got that.
Samuel actually encountering God's call in his life.
Okay, 3. And before the Lamb of God went out of the tabernacle of the Lord, where the ark of God was, and while Samuel was lying down, the Lord called Samuel, and he answered, "Here I am." So he ran to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you have called me." And he said, "I did not call you. Lie down again." And he went and lay down. Then the Lord called again, "Samuel." So Samuel arose and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you called me." He answered, "I didn't call you, my son. Lie down again." Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord, nor was the word of the Lord yet revealed to him. And the Lord called Samuel again the third time. So he rose and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you did call me." Then Eli perceived that the Lord had called the boy. Therefore Eli said to Samuel, "Go lie down, and it shall be, if he calls you, that you must say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant hears.'" So Samuel went and lay down in his place. Now the Lord came and stood and called as at other times, "Samuel, Samuel." And Samuel answered, "Speak, for your servant hears." Then the Lord said to Samuel, "Behold, I will do something in Israel at which both ears of everyone who hears it will tingle." That's an interesting image.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what context is this calling of Samuel happening in? What was the first context in the first verse you read of what was happening when Samuel was called?
Oh, he didn't recognize that it was the Lord that was calling.
But what
I
was
think
happening in the background that he wasn't thinking about?
in the background.
Well, he was very obedient to Eli because
Uh-huh.
that's who he had
And
been
it was
serving.
before what had gone out of the temple?
The
The
light,
lamp of the Lord?
the lamp of
Right.
God.
So they are preparing one of the traditional ritual sacrifices. So they are going about their ordinary duties to God as they looked at the Bible and said, okay, we should sacrifice the Lord at this time of year. And they were doing that. They were preparing their traditional ritual sacrifice. They were following God's command already in this context where Samuel got a specific call. It was because he was already following and part of a household that was already following God's commands here.
Aaliyah, I hate to,
Okay.
but Alice Kennedy is, she wants you to resend her another link. The one she tried just isn't working. Would you send another one to Alice?
Oh,
Okay, that should have reset another message. We'll see if that one goes through. I don't know if that will go through or not, but I sent it to Alice and to Nadine. So if you get an extra, that's because they were just copied on Alice's.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay. So we do see Samuel being set up for a special calling where he does what he already knows how to do. He and Eli have already known this ritual of worshiping the Lord according to the Torah, according to the Old Testament, and they are in the process of doing it. And that allows Samuel to hear and Eli to perceive that this is a special call so that he can instruct Samuel how to respond, that he is ready to do whatever God is going to call him to do. He doesn't know precisely what's going to happen, but Eli can know God is asking for something here and says for Samuel just to be open to whatever is going to happen here. And God gives him a specific call to be a prophet because he's going to do something. He wants something specific in Israel. He wants to catch people's attention with a new word that is going to surprise people and cause them to think this is something special they're hearing.
mhm.
So this does end up being a lifelong call in Samuel's life. Samuel is a prophet for the whole rest of his life. So it turns out this is a long-term thing that Samuel ends up engaged in is he learns to hear God's voice and repeat God's messages to his people. And he does that consistently. So let's also look at what it means for this to be a reasonable act of service or your spiritual act of service. To be the Greek word here is logikein. So which is from the Greek word logo that you hear like in John 1 where John talks about in the beginning was the word and the word was with God and the word was God and the word became flesh and dwelt among us. That same word there, logo, is also part of this word that he's talking about spiritual service here. So any thoughts on that and why this is your spiritual or logical service?
The reasonable, the reasonable service.
Uh-huh.
Meaning. Reasonable.
Mine says, which is your spiritual worship? So some of the translations
So
say
yes,
reason.
spiritual is another way this sometimes you translate. So what's happening here is your eh, Greeks have this theory about souls that's sort of complicated, but there's different sorts of souls and different things have different sorts of souls. So something like a plant has a sensitive soul which allows it to sense things like light or pressure or water and stuff and respond to that. A thing like a cat has a animate soul that allows it to move. You as a human have both a sensitive and an animate soul because you can sense things and you can move. You also have a logical soul. A
Rational.
word is connected with that you have a rational soul that allows you to reason and have coherent thoughts. And so this is also connects to your human spirituality, this sort of logo came. So sometimes this word gets sort of used for the spirit of a human because the the important thing about human is that they have this rational soul.
Yeah, so is that related to how we're made in God's image? I mean, the plants and the cats are not made in God's image, right?
Uh-huh, yeah. Yes, I think it
We
does
are,
have a
and that's the
connection that
rational soul.
the Greeks are thinking of something that is connected to.
Mhm.
Hi, Alice, can you hear us this time? Hi, Anne.
I
Hi, Anne.
We are discussing Romans 12:1, and we've already talked a little bit about what it means to be a living sacrifice, live a life of service to God.
Yeah.
And now we're talking a little bit about why this might be your reasonable service of worship and what that might mean.
Service, it's trusting that doing what I can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There she is.
Hi, Alice. Good to see you.
Hi, Alice.
Almost.
Well, where it says your reasonable worship,
Mhm.
I think I'm going out on a limb here, but I think he's saying this is his will for us is to be a living sacrifice.
Mhm.
Everything in that verse is
Mhm.
what we should be doing. And that's what he's expecting
Mhm.
or hoping for in his children.
Mhm.
Now, how far short we fall,
Mhm.
we all do,
Mhm.
but that's the standard there, is that we are a living sacrifice,
Mhm.
wanting to serve him constantly.
Mhm. And I love this picture of Samuel who had this special place of God using him. I think God can use us all, and God is looking to use us all and have a special place for each of us to
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
have a place in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, have a place in our lives and do what we can and know that God is, it's so
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I can't, God can. That in God,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
trusting God to take care of things.
Yeah, we see that Samuel has to learn to not just try to impose his own interpretation that it's Eli calling him. He needs to learn to accept, okay, this voice is God's, and I need to learn how to listen to God's voice in particular. And he does that. And he has this great career where he learns to tell people what God is saying because he learns to listen to and identify God's voice.
Mm-hmm.
And when Eli said, go lie back down,
Mm-hmm.
and the next time you hear it, say these words.
Uh-huh.
Samuel didn't say, oh, how come? Why am I doing this? Samuel just did it. And then he knew that it was God talking to him.
Pray for Alice to work her phone.
I can't even hear it. Turn up the volume. I just heard it. Okay.
Help me.
Yeah.
Hello, can anybody hear me?
Yeah.
I
Yes,
can now
we can hear
you.
you.
Okay. I had a trouble with my iPad because I didn't have the Zoom app in there.
Uh-huh.
But I'm not hearing you guys real. Oh,
Yes, sometimes you have to turn up your volume for it to project into the room.
yeah, I can't hear it very good. Here. Oh,
Technology, isn't it fun? Oh, yeah.
Yes, and technology is not always easy to figure out. You know, Samuel got a special thing. He had this high priest Eli that his mother had already directed him to obey Eli. And Eli was always already the established high priest, so he could rely and trust in Eli. And it's not always as easy for us to say who we can trust because not everybody who says they're speaking for God is actually speaking for God. So
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, true.
so Samuel had a special circumstance where the high priest of Israel at that time was a good high priest that he could just trust and follow and say what he was told to say. And Eli knew how to direct him.
And when the Lord does speak, he tells Samuel that Eli's house is going to be punished.
Mm-hmm.
And you wouldn't really expect, after obeying him all this time, you wouldn't really expect that to be
Mm-hmm.
the
Eli
first
had
thing
some
that you
things in his
hear.
past where he had raised his sons and not raised them so they would actually be respectful for God. So they had been disrespectful and they were going to end up punished.
Kathy, it's not real loud.
Right.
So God was revealing to Samuel something that would happen in the future, which is one way
Right.
you can tell when it's God's
I think
time.
if I
Is that
if
if
I
the
press
future
a button up
it
here,
is
it
correct.
has volume.
If it's incorrect, then that voice is not really from
Is
God.
that something wrong here?
Press it again.
You go down.
I don't like your phone.
There.
Here, take the X off.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do. Okay, I'll just do it.
Uh, Put your headsets on.
Oh, maybe that's what it is. No, that doesn't work. These don't go with this phone.
Yes, they do. It's already connected. You listen to your.
Oh,
You just have to connect them.
If it's AirPods, you have to turn on your Bluetooth to connect
Working.
to the earbuds.
maybe.
Hi, guys.
Hi,
I
Dan.
also,
Hey,
Hello,
I also
Dan.
work with Foothill College, and they, of course, had a staff meeting today from 5 to 6. So sorry I'm
very
late.
loud.
I don't know. I don't operate iPhone. That's not me. I don't know.
Alice is trying to be able to hear us, so
Oh,
we're kind of waiting on that.
Mhm.
Oh,
And we've been talking about what it means to be a living sacrifice, as Romans 12:1 says, and also why
Okay.
it says that this is our reasonable service of worship.
my goodness.
I like the spiritual service,
Mhm.
the translation of spiritual service. I have a
Mhm.
four
Mhm.
translation Bible that has both of
Mhm.
them.
Yeah.
Some King James says reasonable.
Mhm.
Here's that paper we wrote together. Good. I don't know where I'm jumping in, but did you also do the comment already about you come too? We're talking about,
No, you go ahead and do that.
okay, this is a Robert Frost poem. It's
Okay.
called The Pasture. I'm going out to clean the pasture spring. I only stop to take the leaves away and wait to watch the water clear, if I may. Champing on long, you too. I'm going out to fetch the little calf that's standing by its mother's. It's so young. It totters when it licks up with its tongue. I won't be gone long. You come too. It's a very short Robert Frost poem, but it
Mhm.
just has this feeling of inclusion. And that's what we've been talking about is how do you feel included in what you're doing? It's all inclusive.
Uh-huh.
In God's word, yeah.
Yeah, and we talked at first that the verse starts out brethren or brothers and sisters in words. It's in Greek is actually very general, but hard
Yeah, I
to
got that here.
translate because if
I'll
you
be right
it
back.
literally it just comes out as masculine, and like in the Greek context, just because it's masculine doesn't mean it really meant to try to be addressed to male specifically. So it is this word that's general and encouraging everybody to participate in the same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So Samuel
So
got
we're
a
not doing
specific
this
role that
alone.
actually set him apart from everybody else because he was one of the few prophets in Israel at his time. But this is something that it's calling all Christians to be part of a special life of service to God that teaches you to be this person who is interested in discerning what God's voice is and trying to figure that out.
so I'm wondering what the second paragraph in your notes is about. You say that Paul is using a word of encouragement that pictures being invited to snuggle up to someone's side and walk with them. Was that part of this lesson, or
I think that's in the next verse.
is
Oh,
that in the next verse? Okay, so we'll talk about that next week, huh?
Uh-huh.
Sorry.
Parakalo.
Mm-hmm.
the thought that I'd evoke for me, even though it's next week, is the word reconciliation, which means walk together again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what we're talking about is walking together again with God
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
and making it personal.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
I've
so
got comments on the living sacrifice one, but I don't think we're there yet. Samuel.
yes, talk about living sacrifice. We are there. We have been talking.
Well,
Mhm.
there was an expression I heard. It's part of how I live my life, which is a human being is a being called. So what are you being called to do? To me,
Mhm.
I'm being called to serve. That's what I do. In
Mhm.
whatever situation that comes up, that's what I want to do is serve. And it
Mhm.
better be grateful and it better be wanting to do it rather than grumble, I have to do this. No, if you're serving, it's because you really delight in being there.
Mhm.
That's important. And when I
And
read
I
that
think
thing
the
about,
Samuel and many other the great servants of God, we see that they are willing
yeah,
to do it and they are eager to do what God needs them to do and willing to listen to God and try to figure out what it is that God needs them to do.
yeah,
You
because
look at
God is a
places
mystery.
like Samuel got these correct prophecies that said, okay, this voice I'm hearing, this was an experience of God calling me.
We were playing with that verse because it sounded like,
Mhm.
yes, I heard God's voice, but
Mhm.
what did you hear? I'm not sure. What was that? And it's like, how do you relate to that? It almost
Uh,
was humorous of how that verse came out.
mhm.
Yeah, because
What do you
twice
mean
he
you're
went up,
listening?
hey,
Yeah,
okay, I'm
Because
here.
he thinks that he's sure it's Eli twice.
yeah. Wow.
Perhaps thinks it's the voice of authority and thinks the authority in his life is Eli, so he thinks that's Eli.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording so we can do prayer requests in private.
Okay.
Okay.
Recording stop.